Hello, everyone, and welcome to the people that is joining us on Zoom. I will really appreciate if you can mute yourself. And yes, we're gonna get started. Okay, I practice this to interpret tonight the first half of my introduction. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students here at the Catholic University of America, thank you for joining us on tonight's lecture, Deaf Education Design: How to Create a Learning Building. We are really excited to see students, faculty, and guests here for this important conversation. We, as architects, often ask ourselves, who are we really designing for? How do the people that uses our spaces experience them? These are questions at the heart of why we wanted to bring this topic to our campus. The space challenges us to rethink many assumptions we make as designers, from how people move through different spaces to how they communicate, interact, and feel included. It reminds us that accessibility isn't just about meeting building codes, but about creating architecture that supports awareness, inclusion, dignity, and human connection. As students and future professionals, we spend a lot of time focused on form, structure, materials, and aesthetics buildings. This space asks us to expand that lens and consider experience just as deeply, especially in educational environments where learning depends on communication, visibility, and a sense of belonging. These are the questions we should be asking early in our education, so inclusive design becomes a foundation of our work rather than an afterthought. And sorry. Okay. It's a pleasure to introduce Robert Nichols, an architect whose career brings together professional practice, teaching, and advocacy. Robert earned his master's degree in architecture and urban design, studying under Colin Rowe at Cornell University, an experience that deeply shaped his approach to architectural theory, design rigor, and social responsibility. Throughout his career, Robert has received national and international recognition for his work in accessibility and universal design, particularly in public accommodations and educational facilities. His work consistently pushes the field beyond minimum standards and toward environments that are intentionally inclusive. In addition to his architectural practice, Robert serves as an environmental design advisor, collaborating with architectural firms across the country on schools for the deaf and blind. Through his work, he improves communication access and helps develop new programming that responds to the needs of deaf and hard of hearing communities in the 21st century. His perspective offers invaluable insight into how architecture can actively support learning, equity, and community. We are truly pleased to have Robert A. Nichols with us this evening and are grateful for the opportunity to learn from his experience and expertise. Please join me in welcoming him.
Aku ngeri to tax to everyone. So I like the rule. to
Thank you, Maria, for the introduction, and it's happy to be here with you all this afternoon. Again, thank you, Maria, for the introduction. I'm happy to be here. I also want to send out a thanks to all the students who are members of the National Organization of Minority Architecture and Catholic University as well of America, their School of Architecture. I'm going to briefly introduce myself. I was born and raised in Princeton, New Jersey, and I attended a mainstream school, and I graduated from Princeton High School. And then I went to the School of Architecture at Cornell University. I studied in 2 separate programs. I got a bachelor's of architecture and also a master's of architecture and urban design under the leadership of Professor Colin Rowe. He was a British architecture professor who was a recipient of the American Institute of Architecture Topaz Award, and also the Royal Institute of British Architecture and the Gold Medal Award as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on my lecture. Moving to the first slide. And this is called Deaf Education Design, How to Create a Learning and Building Space.
First slide.
So first I want to tell you what UDCP means. It's an acronym for Universal Design Certificate Professional. And this is where members of the National Association of Building Institute works with consumers with disabilities on their home. So the role is to provide different types of architecture services from residential to government facilities to educational facilities as well, which is one of the building systems that we are currently involved in. Construction is vital for consumers with disabilities. It's important for them to know how to access their homes, classrooms effectively. Also, universal design. A universal designer is responsible to work with consultants and other professionals that allow them to work with residentials with disabilities and working to improve their facilities. There's a difference between the standard code and the ADA, America with Disabilities Act. I want to go into what ADA is. A stands for American. D, Disabilities A Act. And this was started in 1990 by President George Bush, who supported people with disabilities to have more accessibility in public and private sectors. And that included 5 separate titles: Title 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Please excuse me for a moment.
Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry.
You're good. We
Please
can try.
excuse us for a moment. We are just setting up the closed captions for the Zoom participants. So thank you for your patience.
We can. It's a setting. No. Live script. I can send it to them later. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you because.
Yeah.
Well, we can send the transcript to them later.
If
If the captions are not working, I do believe that those who are watching on Zoom have the ability to add captions to their screens on their own computers or devices. So we're going to go back to talking about what happened with deaf people after ADA was passed 36 years ago. Can you think of anything else that has happened since these 36 years that deaf people have had the improvement in communication and access, whether it be through their work, whether it be at home or through academics? Next, I want to discuss the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which was established by the U.S. Accessibility Board in 1973. Unfortunately for me, I had graduated 1 year after that time, so I didn't have any special education while I was attending mainstream school. There was no communication access. The only access was writing, having a writer or note taker, which is the old system that was used. So it took about 53 years for deaf people in school before they actually had improvement in the mainstream setting for communication and access. So we, the deaf people of America, we're seeking for the next milestone for the future, which is highly depending on the evolving technology, communication access, which is ever changing over the years. I want to talk about the difference between deaf education design and universal design. There are 7 principles that can be deaf space led. And it was published by a hearing architect who used to work at Gallaudet University. Back when I met him, we would discuss how deaf space works outside of Gallaudet University, which is not completely finished because there's a lot of deaf people and different programs. There are a number of needs that needs to be improved in the educational setting. So it's very useful for the architect who, if they're not familiar in accessibility, that they learn from now, the technologies we have to build for the future. I want to discuss the 7 principles of universal design. The first principle, equitable use. The second principle is flexibility in use. The third principle is simple and intuitive use. The fourth principle is perceptive information. The fifth principle, tolerance of error. The sixth principle, low physical effort. And the seventh principle, size and space for approach and use. So these 7 principles are not only for deaf people, but it could benefit all people with disabilities in the public and private sector as well. This is not a final publication for special communication for the deaf. I think it's time for me to start more research on what the 8th communication access is, which could be an 8th principle for universal design.
Maybe it died.
So this is for a contrast with text, as you can see here. It is a dark text, and it has a contrast, bright light, such as blue, white, pink. Those colors are important for deaf to be able to see and more comfortably in the classroom. Architectures and the team of consultants, as well as audiologists, consultants, and different special education specialists have programs for deaf and hard of hearing and educational facilities. It's important that we provide the information as well as the method and the technology for the teacher. I've had meetings with teachers and they get very frustrated about the lack of education in the classroom. For example, kids will be playing with each other but won't be attentive to the teacher. They may show something on the board where they're trying to figure out that the space in the classroom is comfortable to provide the quality of light needed for the children to be able to see more clearly in the classroom. So that's one example of something that we're working on that we need to improve in the deaf school. I want to talk about first serving the deaf space or the deaf environment advisor. Typically that team, when an architect has a contract with a client, that is when the work begins. I'll be asked to meet with the client, who can be a superintendent or an advocate, perhaps for the state education department, or perhaps a stakeholder. All of those type of people would come together to discuss the program. I will also visit the site to observe the structure inside, how old the building is, which could be something as old as 40 years old, which is not good for an education program, considering the low quality of light, as well as sound and acoustics may be very poor in an old building such as that. But what we need to do is meet with the client to be able to give them a program and show them a list of things that we can provide instead of telling them our ideas as architects. It's best that we discuss the program that they want to improve for their academic program or school. So I work at home to work research on new tools, new technologies regarding communication access, because most students are unaware there are so many different softwares in their laptop or devices that make sure they are learning to write and read, and their speech as well. So we're getting that information from a number of Hirsch's software, which really depends on how skilled they are at learning the software. One important thing is that we need more white space and corridors and pathways where people can communicate with open movement in their body, wide space. And 8 feet or more space provided in a hallway, proximical space, being able to look at each other face to face, walking back and forth, side by side. It's important to see where you'll be able to see the next space that you're walking to. I also want to talk about notification systems, mass notification systems. For example, in a dining room where perhaps there's inclement weather in a certain area, in order to communicate what will happen, being able to identify what you need to do within a few seconds, creating some type of mass notification is vitally important, some type of display, whether it be on the wall, with beacon LED lighting, flashing lights perhaps, to capture the attention or get the attention. Perhaps it could be a tornado warning coming, and you will be able to know where to evacuate to a safe space. Another thing is when class begins, sometimes teachers forget to start the LED lights. So it's important to set up these notifications. I've received a number of problems with children feeling stressed due to problems with reading and writing, literacy, and socialization. And a superintendent did suggest that perhaps a weight room could be an option to reduce the stress. Considering the comparison of hearing people who have the same stress, when they go to physical education, for example, they have an opportunity to exercise. And in that same comparison, weightlifting can help reduce that stress to allow these students to feel better, to feeling back to normal, to be able to return to the classroom as normal.
So, when I talk about
Now I want to discuss how many architects you may know in the community or the area and county who are involved with any academic or deaf projects. A lot of times architects will move forward with a project without having a consultant, considering the cost it may be for that. They may be limited in the funds based on construction. So typically an architect will get information from a school, so they will feel no need to consult with a deaf consultant. And that way they're, without having a deaf consultant on the team, they move forward with their design. Being unfamiliar with ADA and accessibility, being unfamiliar with communication access for any academic setting, which can be a difficult way for, make it harder for the architect themselves. But perhaps they may have won or got recognition or award from a local or state award for the AIA, American Institute of Architects. The reading and writing for the deaf and hard of hearing is not successful in the classroom without a consultant who's able to advise them on how to design that deaf classroom. It's important that a client has an assessment. It's very important to meet with the client. For example, I got a contract for Arkansas School for the Deaf Blind. And the principal on the team asked me, as well as another consultant, who's a blind architect, to be able to meet with the superintendent, as well as the stakeholders, as well as advocates from the state education department, as well as parents of the deaf and blind students. And the purpose of this meeting is to know who I am and to be able to introduce myself to them. And it's important to do that because of my identity. When I did meet with the superintendent for the first time, she was excited to see me, as well as meeting in the room with the entire team. The superintendent wanted to replace the interpreter and actually interpret for me. So we had this meeting, and after the meeting, we went to lunch out to this restaurant for lunch. That way we could have more time to talk more. Essentially, she wanted to learn how I'm doing as a professional architect. I want to emphasize why deaf architect is so critical, which is so different from a team without a deaf architect or a consultant. People who work in state education departments are typically involved with the superintendent or stakeholders. Typically, this team together will ensure that the entire team knows the work prior to getting started. The governor of Arkansas Sarah Huckabee Center came at the opening and wanted to support $53 million of construction for the new school. The old school had already been about 50 years old and it was in bad shape. And so she wanted to demolish that. And the governor then wanted to pick a deaf architect, an environmental advisor, both to be involved on the team for this project, just to make sure the people who work for the state need to understand the appropriate consultant to advise them on how to set up the space in an educational setting for the deaf. The state will typically pay for the architecture's work, which indeed is a lot of work. Working on the design, putting down a list of hours needed for the work, as well as how much time needed for traveling back and forth, sending the invoice to the architect monthly. I have to be honest, you have to be a little bit patient during this process. I had experienced 2 or 3 months without pay, but that's the thing about working with the government. You get things done a little bit slower compared to working with private sector, where you can get things back quicker. Met some educators who have asked me, what programs do I know of? But I typically don't like to answer that. I like to have the teacher tell me which program they would like, so that way I can know more about that prior to starting with the team. Knowing the shape of design, a square, a circle, triangle, whichever works for visual communication in the classroom. Good quality of light is important to have inside of their classroom. Good acoustic systems as well is vital for them, simply because there may be students who may have a cochlear. Some students may have a hearing aid. Some students may have some slight hearing, so it would be helpful for them to learn with that audio. And for those who do not use auditory learning, have sign provided, which is something that we would advise to the team. That answer could be solved by this type of design in the classroom. So we're thinking about how to improve the design in the educational program. And I can tell you what typically happens after the construction is completed. You'll notice that the teacher may feel more comfortable in the classroom. There can be a number of details in the space that can create it to be a deaf space. For example, in a classroom, if the design is in a square, with less than half a wall could be a glass. The teacher may not want that due to a high glare in the classroom. So we have to consider what is better for both the students and the teacher to feel comfortable. Ensuring that they're learning everything needed from beginning to end while they're doing their academic journey in the academic setting. Hold on. So the question is, are there any other professionals the architect should be consulting with?
Yes.
And the answer is yes. It's a complete team that's working together for this in this academic setting. When I talk about who's responsible for asking the questions, the architect and the principal are those who are responsible for working with the consultant, as well as the team leaders, so that the architect can get the appropriate information needed from the client, being able to provide a list of the client's needs, and making sure that the project is not your typical project. It's different from your typical school environment and school environment space.
A
number of people in small communities differentiate from other people who are living in larger cities or communities. For an example, in 1864, President Abraham Lincoln, he initiated the School for the Deaf, not only in the town of Washington, D.C., but he also decided other locations, which were further out, possibly 50 miles away from those small cities, a small city like D.C. at the time. I knew there would be a lot of traffic by way of horses, and there would be a lot of people, and it wouldn't be a safe environment conducive for the children. So he decided to place those locations far away where it was conducive to the educational environment. That was much more bigger improvement than before we are today. For example, you have Arkansas School for the Deaf in Little Rock, which is a big city in the state, but Little Rock is like a small town that, how can I say, maybe 5 miles away from the major city there. And they opened there, and it was a more comfortable environment for people to commute back and forth between the schools and home. So we're going to talk about education around the county, the demographic. As you see the different categories, they show in the light blue, that means they're deaf, Black, probably raised in a hearing family. It shows a percentage of high school, and that tells you that that one state averages the number of deaf institutions will be maybe about 2 to 3 in certain states compared to like a hearing school where they have maybe 200 to 300. So you see the stark difference in the percentages. Some deaf people, they graduate from the school of those deaf institutions and go right into working. Some decide to go back to a hearing institution to get, let's say, a college degree. And it depends on what the program offers for the deaf person. You see up here on the right, our right, most deaf people, they get a PhD in deaf education, like institutions like Gallaudet University. It's not often they may get a PhD in psychology rather than business or politics. It's just different from other people. It also depends on what country they come from. Comparisons with the hearing in different levels of education from high school to collegiate. So we see here the demographics show percentage of deaf is and that's 22.7% have completed their bachelor's degree compared to a 38.4% in hearing people. It's different in undergrad and so on and so on. Even in masters compared to the hearing people, you see a 38.4% difference. You have more education, more opportunities to learn in various programs. So you see two different pictures of deaf and working and hearing and working as well. And they both have different percentages. Working after high school, after college, or maybe going into a technical vocational school. You see that the percentage there have people don't have jobs where compared with hearing percentage of 24.9% of not in the labor force. And there's another percentage of 5% where hearing people are employed, where they're working in government, whether that's federal, state, or local. And most work for private companies, and few deaf people do. And it's important to see that difference because it starts in education. How does deaf education design work? Who's responsible for the deaf education design? And that's me as a deaf consultant. What is the role of a deaf education design when the system finds maybe they need this project done for their school, and the architect gets a request for a presentation from the client, a referral for the client, and sometimes that client may have an RFP, and that requires a deaf consultant to work with the team. And they have other RFPs that doesn't need deaf consultants consultation. I'm not sure what the difference is, and that also depends on their for the budget in Arkansas School for the Deaf, and they have a project for $5.3 million, and they can ask the architects to ask deaf consultants and deaf architects to work with the team because of their good budgeting. Compared to other schools and schools of deaf in Virginia, they have $3 million contracts, and they selected me to work and focus on deaf space and particularly works in less comparison to less payment than the other jurisdictions, but it also gives me different hours of service as well. So, how the starting point meets receives input from the client. So when the architect from Arkansas, they told me that he asked me if I was been in Arkansas. I told him I've never been there before. It will be my first time. He warned me that the weather in Arkansas is totally different from here because of the humidity there, with 90-degree weather. He told me to wear light clothing. I told him, that was fine. I asked him for some suggestions of what kind of clothing I would need. He told me to go to Banana Republic to find what type of clothing I wanted to wear, for his meeting. So I found, a nice outfit there. It was a vest and it had nice holes, and I could put a flashlight. It had a compartment there, and also I had another compartment I could put a camera there. I had a hat that I bought there to block the sunlight. And we had to look at the price tag, and it was something like $600. It was expensive. And I even forgot one black t-shirt. So I got all the clothing together and I made it to the meeting. And I asked them if they seen many signs with men standing in a black t-shirt standing in front of the white door. And they told me that was fine. There was no problem that I could sign because, visual purposes. So I didn't tell them the ideas of the design, but I did introduce myself. I introduced my background and my educational background and my different roles and profession. They told me their experiences and the problems that they're facing in the schools. Some of them said that the demographics for Arkansas School, they're having issues with their neighboring, with their neighbors. There was actually a state prison there. And on the other side, there was a cemetery. So I didn't really understand. I wasn't talking about like what was going on the outside. I wanted to know more about the demographics inside, what issues they were facing there. So they wanted to know, how to improve their school. So after calming them down, I asked the president, superintendent, and they wanted to revamp things. So they wanted to develop a new culture. And he asked them to give different kind of programs that they wanted to initiate. One of the things they wanted to talk about was having field trips. And I was like, what do you mean about field trips? And they were saying visiting different places, like for classroom education, like history, English. Entomology. And so I asked, what would be their favorite field trips? And they mentioned fishing. So I asked them, did they catch the big fish or did they want to catch small fish? It didn't matter which one. So I just wanted to start to work with the team. So to get to the point, to answer that question, we kicked off, it was a kickoff point opportunity for the design team. So what materials you create are communication access installation for all learners. And the answer is POUR principles. It's an acronym. Receivable. People perceive and conceive from what you teach. Operable. The teacher bringing things, maybe they need to sit down and open up a book or open a laptop, and that's like a form of operation for the classroom. It's operable. Understandable. The ability for them to understand my signs, and sometimes the teacher may sign or maybe have lip reading, because you have some students who have cochlear implants or they know how to read lips, but the teacher just has to make sure that their signs are clear so that everyone can understand before we go on. And the last one is robust. It feels good to understand 100%, to have a good understanding, good shape, hand shapes, knowing to roll up your sleeves, know how to read and write, know how to make things. That's important. That's important role of the teacher as well, to help make sure that the students have understanding with 100%. Some will not understand, and they maybe only understand 99%, and just go back and explain it all over again.
I want to move on talking about reverberation and sound. In order for you all to understand this visual, this is typically not what architects do. We typically pick an acoustic to research just to ensure that the Acoustics are successful in the academic space. So you can see here there's 40 decibels, which is the average of sound within a classroom. Consider the sound of a fan, consider the sound of a vent, movement, people walking, desk moving around. So just depending on how loud or soft the sound is in the classroom impacts the functionality. You can see at the top there's 100 decibels, which would be too noisy. That could be noisy kids, they could be screaming, they could be loud in the classroom. But it's important for the teacher to have the tolerance to providing the best solution whenever the acoustics within the classroom is too loud. Figuring out how to reduce the noise within the classroom. So this here is a copy of what's considered an audiogram, which shows a percentage of how much hearing. This is often used with deaf people and also hard of hearing people as well. You can see here there is a blue line on the chart, which identifies normal hearing, as well as the decibels. You can see are set at 0. Being able to hear everything at normal state. You can also see there's a red line on the chart, runs between 25 and 110 decibels. 110 decibels would be identified as profound hearing loss. And those identified hard of hearing who perhaps may use a hearing aid or perhaps have a cochlear implant, you can see showing here on the chart, identified with the letter A. That's symbolic of a hearing aid or a cochlear implant. Which can be different for those students or children who can hear sounds. Those with a cochlear implant compared to those sounds heard with a hearing aid. Being able to identify where exactly the sound is coming from. A cochlear implant has more functionality of sound with a range of high to low pitch. For example, hearing a bird chirp, a baby cry, hearing higher frequencies such as a car, an airplane, and things of that nature, a machine. So you can imagine in a school they require speech therapy for those students who need that accommodation to and accompany to this audiogram. And that's usually set up for them prior to entering in the classroom and set up for long-term K through 12. So I have this picture here for you if you're unfamiliar with how much deaf people typically can hear. This is a picture of a BTE, behind the ear hearing aid. There's also things such as a bone conduction hearing aid. This is a picture here, which is typically for a blind person who perhaps someone who got sick and perhaps was blind as an effect of that. There's a certain type of hearing aid that wraps around the throat that connects to feeling the vibrations from those who do speak. Here's a picture of a cochlear implant, which is very popular for deaf children who actually want to get that hearing. There are typically many deaf children who have hearing parents, and they typically do want their children to receive a cochlear implant between ages 2 and 3, which typically is known to be too early, but unfortunately, they are not a fan of sign language, and so they're being more open to wanting them to learn there's a population of people who are open to learning sign with their children to improve that communication. Then there is ASL, American Sign Language, which is the #1 tool for a successful classroom. No matter if the children do know sign or not, they can learn it. They can learn ASL, which can help them with interpreting, reading, writing, speech. It can be very useful for the teacher, helping them learn at a faster rate, improving communication over the school years.
So I want to show you, we developed in my research and prepared you a picture of an example of it's what we call like a bubble diagram. And you see I'll show you with the arrow here, the different ways you can see. You see the 3 arrows there. That means that's mainstream connection between 2 spaces. One arrow means less connection between 2 spaces. That means children enter like the administration office, maybe in K-6. The superintendent will overlook them and make sure that everything is set up and ready for them in the classroom. Then you have like pre-K-8, where there are other students from high school. You have students in high school who can move more independently by themselves with less administrative handling. You see the blue there. It's an example of where the classroom design is. This is for kids in K-8. It's a bigger enlarged picture. It shows the classroom. You see the number of seats, it's average, maybe 6 to 8. Because only few people enter a deaf institution in one state there in Arkansas. Maybe some of the other kids transferred to mainstream school, which is a regular school. See those one-to-one? No, that is a one-to-one ratio of students to teacher for K through second grade. In a setting like that, you'll need two teachers. One should be observing how much they're learning so that they can understand better, and the other uses that data and implements those things into a one-to-one session so that the student can understand, perhaps by way of repetitiveness or giving that one-on-one time with this student to help improve their skills, whether it be in language, math, reading, and so forth. This independent library, you might have special education, books or tools. If the child feels it's too much pressure and have difficulties reading, you can perhaps find the book and interpret it, or maybe help them to start over and learn the alphabet. We'll have pictures and words that other tools or resources that will help this student learn in the core classroom. Here, you have social activity. Where, on breaks, you'll have a lunch break or just a regular break where you're doing something in class. If recess happens and the weather doesn't permit, you go into this social activity space and have recess there. Or sometimes you just want to go in and just play games, and everyone will go into the social activity space and play those games there. Means one had the time.
Yes.
So if you want a time for Q&A, sure, I'll speed up a little bit.
Okay.
It's a 3D example here. It's very important for deaf space, especially when you're observing this children when they're going up and down from outside and back into the class. As you can see, that line, those digital lines, that means that's a ceiling that's above the class. And we talked about the audiologist system for people who use cochlear implants or hearing aids or both. Red square, that means it's bad acoustic. That's why he gets the information from the British architect. It says after their examination, this is bad acoustics without the poor acoustic system because of the wall setup, and they have a lot of echoes going on. Blue indicates that it's a good acoustic system. It's fully accessible from wall to wall. Plus on the side where where the teacher is standing here as well. As you see here in the diagram. This teacher is standing with maybe about 4 inches of wall space, so the acoustics, it reduce the echo from her voice. And that's how the system works. And this different options of improved acoustics. This is what this diagram is talking about. I have 9 pieces of ceiling space, 4 to 6 inches thick. That makes it more improved acoustic sounding. And there's many different shapes of tiles, and it's not only for classroom settings, but it's also for auditoriums like theaters, dining rooms, long walkways. I'm talking about that classrooms would need at least half of the space because you want to reduce the acoustics so that reduce the clarity and equalize the acoustics between the teacher and the student. And also reduce the glare as well. Make sure that you reduce the glare so that the student can see the teacher's signs clear.
So I started working with architects 2 years ago, and it was for a $53 million school that was for the deaf and blind. Here's a picture. You can see here there's 2 courts for K through 6. Being able to have accessibility to the dining halls on campus. You can see in the middle, showing here. This area is for the blind school, also for housing, dormitories. On the right side is the deaf campus and deaf housing. And both meet for academics in the middle, which is considered the heart of the area. So typically when architects complete their design, they will typically send it over to me, give me a concept of the classroom, to ask me to analyze how the design, how it's set, and if it's successful for the deaf space. So this here shows, you can see there's 4 different squares. The bigger square, the 3 of the 4, this one here. This is an area where there's a problem with the intersection. This area had a soft wall. This here in the middle was a main stairwell that led to classrooms that were upstairs. This area on the side is the administration offices. This area is the dining halls. So I created a solution to that by, as you can see here, there's 3 pathways, all that lead to an intersection. You can see there's somewhat of an arc of about 5 feet. In this area, the 5 feet radius, I'm identifying where that arc is. And this is where kids who cannot see or hear those walking around them or behind them, this circular arc will prevent that accident of traffic of people. So you can see here on the wall, there's panels going up. It's for the blind to be able to feel, which identifies that they're actually going upstairs to another floor. They can be able to feel the textures to identify whether going upstairs or going downstairs, the right direction. And this, you can identify, there's a middle handrail for the deafblind. And this is just to ensure that the deaf students and the blind students can walk with safety. So for example, in this space, you can see those panels where you can see through the glass. And so in this area, we just want to change the design for it could be a soft intersection. Additionally, I want to talk about notification systems, mass notification systems. And that's where people, for example, there could be a deaf educator who may go out and try to get the attention of another educator who cannot hear them. Instead, they have the option to push something that will alert the attention of the person that they're trying to wave to get their attention. Of course, it depends on the width and the space within the hallway, whether it's a narrow hallway or they're really far. For example, at Maryland School for the Deaf in Frederick, they have long hallways, which can be a problem for mass notification systems. Now I want to go into translucent panels. So some clients may want that set up in their office, connected with lighting, being able to see in the hallway, being able to see flashing lights that'll alert them they need to come out of their office. There are some times where there are there's spacing that allows you to see screens behind you. The metal screens are a little bit different than the glass panels. So the team received an award called the City Award. CIDIE is an acronym that stands for Community Informed Design for Innovative Environments. And this is one of the people who's typically involved with the accessibility design for those with disabilities. Also mentioning the person I had mentioned earlier about winning the award. So this is a list of our entire team. And this is also an example of a submission of the CIDIE. You can see here in the middle, this is a blind architect who I had worked with for about 3 different academic projects. There's mock-up tile. So it helps you be able to feel the braille on the ground. It allows the students to feel more comfortable. And in this aspect, we picked the best markup, the best tile floor that matched for this project. In this other picture in the top corner, the client wanted the architect to bring different copies of classroom options, classroom colors, materials, so that way they could put it up and pick which perhaps color green. They would identify what they like based on, if they like it, they would put up a green sticker. If they did not like it, they would put up a red sticker to identify what they did or did not like or what to bring to get installed for their office. So there were specific things from the factory that the consultant requested. So this is just another picture here. You can see the space. So I want to watch a clip.
Where did it go? You can hear.
So this is a 3-minute clip that I like to show. The tree on the top is the name of the construction frame. It was a metal frame, and this was a ceremony of the tree installation, the tree topping.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the ceremony because of timing. We had two architect teams, one from another place, and another architect was from actually inside of Arkansas, and they were involved with the construction phase, quote unquote architectural stage, and also doing a lot of recording. The clients invited us, also two teams for the ceremony, for the tree topping ceremony. And they asked them to sign their name on the last beam there that was being installed. And they installed that beam up at the top of the frame. Careful not to actually drop this thing.
last one. Let me see.
That's the last slide.
Let me see.
And it shows when I received the invitation from
There. Yes.
P Media. And I was working to publish it in a newspaper in the town there. And they invited me to go for a table discussion at the end of construction. And then hopefully, maybe in the early stages of 2027, I want to go and visit there and see how wonderful the space looks. And you can see this picture here. That's just my goal to go there.
Okay, that is the question.
That's all I have. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, gentleman in the back there.
Thank you for your presentation. I have two questions. Number one, in the floor plan that you showed, where you had the classroom, and then the public space, the public activity area, there was a wall in front of it. There was like a little corridor, and then there was a wall in front of that social space. What was the purpose of that wall? Perhaps we could bring up the floor plan.
Just repeat your question again.
Yes, in the floor plan, in the enlarged floor plan of one of the portions of the school, there was a social area, like a social activity space with a double door. And then there was a little hallway in front of it. And then there was a wall in front of it. I'm just curious, was that wall intentional? And did that serve a purpose to benefit the deaf and or the blind?
Yes. Yes, okay.
Yes, I think that can benefit deaf and deafblind students, and that depends on their level of learning. The wall is like it's a folded wall. It's like a panel. Wait, let me bring it up 1 second.
So the
Mouse. Or
Is this the picture you're talking about?
go back here.
Okay. About the
Talking about the wall in the classroom in the middle?
yes. 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 And
So it's a sample of the classroom. The dark wall is really not a wall there.
you can see
As you can see right here,
only
it's a balcony there. So that's actually looks like it's a wall, but that's just a sample. It's an example of what the classroom looks like mainly. So on the other side, that's like a glass panel, a glass wall for social activities. And that's important so that the teacher can look out and see what the children are doing inside the classroom. And the glass is also important for observation as well. Did that answer your question? You have another one?
Maybe you will know this, maybe you won't, but has the need for designing for deaf education increased in the past few years, or have you seen a pretty stable request?
that's a good question. Well, I see the
So,
content.
role of my service is consultation.
Well,
So I'm really not doing it a full-time service. I help set up a consultation period to introduce architects. Sometimes they'll contact me if they're, willing to do a consultation with the architects. But the role of the consultation is just part-time. It's not full-time. So I'm on their time and the cost depending on the cost of my services as well.
Well,
I put down the information of my consultation services on the website. Then I market that to architects who possibly need consultation or different projects between the hearing and the deaf world. To do more work, but I hope that in the future that I can have more opportunities to different architects as a consultant as well. Did that answer your question?
Oh,
I just wanted to ask if the need for the service is increasing, meaning are there more deaf people? Is there
Yes.
a increase in deaf?
I understand. It's what sometimes parent of deaf.
So sometimes the parents of deaf people, they really don't feel comfortable with having their children in the school that are deaf, so they typically transfer them into mainstream schools. And then that really just depends on if the child has got cochlear implant, and most deaf schools have a decrease in the number of deaf. So that's become an issue. Some parents have expressed frustration because of the lack of deaf teachers who have, let's say, the certifications in teaching. That's become an issue. So that's why we're trying to encourage deaf teachers to, set up different programs for the future of Arkansas of the deaf. And right now they have 200 students in deaf schools, and some who live far away in more remote areas, they go into mainstream schools because their parents don't want their kids to live so far away. So here in Maryland, they have 3 deaf institutions. Some want to go to school without the housing because perhaps they live close, or maybe 2 to 3 cities over, like Rockville. Some are closer to Frederick, and for example, DC is pretty far from Frederick. It just really depends on the region the child lives in. Some travel up to 20 miles, which is an average to go to school. Like in Arkansas, Iowa, they have maybe a reduced number, and we don't really know what that, looks like in the future. And that also is dependent on how many deaf people are participating in deaf institutions, schools for the deaf. That Utah State, the Department of Education decided to set up new programming and set up the sixth school. And it's not particularly a deaf school, but it's going to be an addition to like a regular school. And teachers think that deaf students going to mainstream school with like special education programs and one location is equivalent to all of the deaf schools combined. So you see, like, we don't know what will happen in the future with that being established.
Yes.
Gentlemen, someone in the back there?
I don't know. Yeah. Yes.
So hello. I'm assuming that again, sevens, 80s.
70s to 80s. It's a big class.
The
The years you mean? So specific, specialized deaf design. Is that the question? Are you talking about like the history, correct? You're connecting the history with deaf schools? No, no, no. From your experience, education, your own contextual experience. I just want to be clear so that I can understand what you're talking about. 1% of the deaf and the deaf in the 60s and 70s compared to currently, is that what you're asking me? No, 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 no. I'm just curious, to your architectural background, you yourself in school, you've been through school, going through school, you had specific classes that was offered that you attended. You have specific major of deaf design classes? No, 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 no. There's nothing of the sort. No. There's no like special class or special education. There's a mistake here. Can you just
Oh.
no, they do not have classes for that. So I'm asking you yourself, your living experience with your architectural background. Well, students in high school don't really know about like design, the deaf spaces in the classroom because they're teenagers. But
50 years start on the first.
when I was 15, I started my first job that was related to architect. I wanted to learn more in general about how the working of an architectural process looked like, but I had no knowledge before I started my job, and I learned by educating myself. Honestly, I did everything myself. Living experience without any special education in mainstream school until the Rehabilitation Act started in 1973. And that's a year after I graduated. And then I decided to start my experience in deaf education after graduating from college. And before that, I had no project on any deaf education for deaf spaces, anything like that. Right, right. But who taught you this desk-based design? Or no one. So you figured this out yourself? No, yes, all created myself.
But
But
um,
but I've met some students um who were disabled in a wheelchair and had experienced problems. So we developed some things that they have, like special people to help them. And that's like, oh, that's what happened in 19, it's just 53 years ago. In 1973, I can't remember the exact year. Oh, but there's no program or anything. I mean, you have a good point when you talk about like the civil rights, when President Johnson signed in to act in 1964, the Civil Rights Act to reduce, uh, to stop segregation and get more Black and colored people into mainstream schools with other schools. And after 1964, but before that, deaf schools were segregated as well. So the parents didn't really want me to go to school of deaf because there was also a low quality of teachers as well. So they really didn't know much about architects. So that's why I really started my own first job at 15 with an architect. And I started to learn, and then I started to apply for different jobs related to architect. I'm sorry, are you deaf or are you hearing? I'm hearing. I just graduated from Gallaudet. And my mom also is an architect. In, in the normal area, we've been there. Architectural world, I'm very, very into. Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Can you come? Yeah, it's easier to also.
Thank you. Do you ever consult for mainstream schools that want to be accessible, or is that not something that they're really doing?
That's a good question. Really, most architects really need me to like have a brief consultation really for deaf schools. I don't really do much have much influence on hearing schools, but I do know that architects don't have like background in universal design. So I try to ask them to, use my consultation service for universal design so that it's, especially not on really huge projects, because if they need my consultation for like a ramp or something like that, or maybe how to make a bathroom more accessible or exit, or how to make a route to parking more accessible, or a route to the classroom more accessible, it's not much work. But if it's actually for a school for the deaf, that's a lot of work. We're talking about deaf space. We're talking about making things more wide, the quality of lighting, talk about equipment for communication, mass communication. That requires a lot of effort, a lot of work. And, I'm hoping that I can, be a new consultant for an architect and to match whatever their needs, and especially in universal projects. Any more questions? Okay, I guess that's all. Wait.
Thank you, Robbie, for a very informative presentation. I learned a lot today. I'm wondering, do the courses specifically tailored to deaf and hard of hearing students include education on requesting effective communications, such as sign languaging or cart services, things like that. Do courses help the deaf and hard of hearing students to be empowered in the community?
Well, most schools for the deaf, they have courses set up for communication access, like closed caption, card services, uh, sign language for kids to learn inside of the schools. I'm not sure how much that has us like full communication access outside of the schools. We don't know much about we know that they learn much about like through learning through reading, speech, writing, but going outside, we try to equip them with the tools to be able to manage being in the hearing world. So sometimes the transportation department will have a full understanding of um, help travelers to see and understand through diagram for maybe their flight. Maybe to see how high the ceiling is on certain places. So for deaf people, and it's almost like having like a dog to walk with them to help protect them or help guide them between home and school. Know that the ADA, Title 2 and 3 requires accessible communication for anytime one is transporting, like subway, public transportation. It has to have a display of wait times or the next train that'll arrive. So that's really a good way of an example of communication for deaf people, but I'm not involved with communication accessibility outside of the schools, but I more focus on the design and then bring it to the instructors, and the instructors, the teachers will pick what kind of communication access they would prefer for themselves, not what I would prefer for them. I'm more so focusing on the design and working with the architect and try to find solutions for walls or flooring, things that's dealing with the structure itself. That's where I have my experience at. I hope that you understand that they can feel comfortable with me as well.
Thank you, Robert, for this presentation. We learned a lot today, and we really appreciate you being here. So, yeah, thank you for everyone who came and also assisted in the Zoom meeting. And thank you for participating in this important and really meaningful conversation that will allow us, all as architects, to improve our designs for better accessibility and better designs for all the people. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.